July 19th, 2021, 5:44 a.m. A male lion crosses the eastern boundary of the Karu territory in the Serengeti's central corridor. He is not patrolling. He is not hunting. He is moving with the specific, unhurried certainty of an animal that has known exactly where it was going for 1,143 days and has finally allowed itself to arrive. He weighs 226 kilograms. His mane is dense and almost completely black, the kind that researchers at the East African Lion Monitoring Consortium associate with peak testosterone and a body conditioned by years of continuous combat. His left flank carries a scar 24 centimeters long from a fight in 2020 that punctured his lung and should have been the last thing that ever happened to him. It was not. His right eye has a pale ring around the iris, a permanent reminder of a strike that came 3 millimeters from ending everything. His face, in the field notes of every researcher who has documented him, is described with one word that keeps appearing across different authors, different years, different observation posts: purposeful. His name is Mrithi. In Swahili, it means the air. The rangers who named him did not choose it because of what he was born into. They chose it because of what he came back to claim. 37 months earlier, Mrithi weighed 14.8 kilograms. He was 7 months old. He was pressed against a termite mound at the eastern edge of his pride's territory, watching his father die 60 meters away, watching the lion who killed him stand over the body, watching that lion turn and look directly at him for 3 seconds before moving on. He saw the face. He knew the face. He had known that face his entire life. This is not a story about survival, and it is not simply a story about revenge. This is a story about betrayal, about what a young lion carries inside him when the thing that destroyed everything he loved was not a stranger that came from outside. It was something that grew up in the same territory, drank from the same water, and chose, with full knowledge of what it was doing, to come back and take it all. It starts with the most calculated act of treachery in the eastern Serengeti's recorded history.
The Karu Pride held 94 square kilometers of territory along the Ngeri River system in the eastern Serengeti. 6 adult females, 1 dominant male, the research consortium designated as K Prime, a 9-year-old coalition survivor who held this territory alone for 4 years after his coalition partner died from infected wounds in 2014. 8 cubs across 2 litters. 2 subadult females approaching independence. K Prime was, by every metric the East African Lion Monitoring Consortium applied, an exceptional animal. Holding 94 square kilometers as a solitary male for 4 consecutive years is documented in exactly 3 other cases in the consortium's 26-year database. He had repelled 7 coalition challenges during that period. He knew his territory the way only an animal that has defended it alone can know it. Every approach corridor, every blind spot, every position from which a challenge could come. What he did not account for was a challenge that already knew all of this too. The Jabari Coalition appeared at the western boundary of Karu territory in April 2018. 4 males, ages 5 to 8. The consortium's monitoring team logged their arrival as standard nomadic pressure and began tracking their movement toward K Prime's core range. What the initial field notes described as unusual was the coalition's approach pattern. They did not probe the boundaries the way nomadic coalitions typically do, testing defenses. They moved as if the mapping was already done. June 2nd, 2018, 10:33 p.m. Camera trap NG4 at the Ngeri River's western crossing captured the Jabari Coalition entering Karu territory. They split immediately upon crossing. Two males moved northeast toward K''s primary rest site. Two moved southeast, cutting off the retreat corridor that K' had used in every previous territorial challenge the cameras had documented. That southeastern corridor was not marked on any public research map. It was not a route any animal observing from outside the territory could have identified. It was known only through years of direct observation from inside. K' was engaged the two northeastern males at 10:51 p.m. near a granite outcrop that the consortium's GPS records mark as point KF 2018-07. He fought with the ferocity of an animal defending everything it has ever built. The fight lasted 9 minutes. He was still standing when the two southeastern males arrived from behind. The consortium's incident report, filed as EALNC-2018-0602, documents what followed in the precise, affectless language of scientific record. K' was fatally wounded at 11:14 p.m. The pride's defensive structure collapsed within the hour. 5 of the 8 cubs were killed. 2 lionesses fled north and would never return to the study area. By 3 a.m., the Karu pride had ceased to exist. 1 cub survived. Mrithi, 7 months old, 14.8 kilograms, hidden against a termite mound 60 meters from where his father fell, completely still, watching everything, and watching the lion who led the coalition stand over K''s body. A lion with a notched left ear and a pale scar across his muzzle. A lion that Mrithi had seen before, many times, because that lion had grown up in this territory. He was K''s younger brother. Rangers found Mrithi at 7:22 a.m., dehydrated, unresponsive to approach, eyes fixed on the spot where his father's body had lain. Heart rate 191 beats per minute. He did not make a sound. They named him Mrithi, the heir, because something in the way he looked at that empty patch of ground told them that this was not finished, that whatever had just been taken, this cub already understood it was his to reclaim.
Subscribe right now, because in 2 minutes I am going to show you something that the East African Lion Monitoring Consortium buried in a footnote for 3 years before anyone connected it to Mrithi's file. Something that reframes everything you have just watched. Stay here. The surviving females of the Karu pride were absorbed into neighboring territories within 2 weeks of the takeover. The sub-adult females dispersed east. The Jabari coalition settled into 94 square kilometers of prime eastern Serengeti territory with the ease of animals who had known exactly what they were acquiring before they arrived to take it. And at the eastern boundary of that territory, a 7-month-old cub with 14.8 kilograms and the face of his father began the first day of everything that came after. The EALMC survival database records a 5% survival rate for orphaned male cubs aged 6 to 8 months in territory controlled by a hostile coalition in the eastern corridor. 5 out of 100 reach their first birthday. The rest are taken by the landscape before the dry season ends. Mrithi survived by doing 2 things simultaneously that no orphaned cub in the consortium's records had done before. He ate anything available: insects, lizards, monitor lizard eggs, carrion accessed only after every scavenger had finished, fish from receding dry season pools. And while he ate, while he moved, while he slept in the densest cover he could find, he watched the Jabari coalition. not passively, not accidentally, with a focused attention of an animal that had a specific reason for everything it observed. Camera trap data from 9 stations along the eastern boundary of former Karu territory shows Mrithi's movement corridor tracking the Jabari Coalition's patrol routes from June through November 2018 with a consistency that the research team flagged in their quarterly report as behaviorally anomalous. Always 400 to 750 meters behind, always downwind, always in cover, always watching. He was 7 months old, and he was already building something. In September 2021, 3 years after the takeover, Dr. Kofi Asante of the East African Lion Monitoring Consortium pulled Mrithi's complete file to prepare a behavioral development report on the most anomalous orphaned cub in the consortium's active database. What he found buried in the historical records stopped him completely. The consortium had been monitoring the Karu territory since 2009. Their records included full genealogical data on K Prime going back to his birth in 2008. K Prime had been born into a coalition of 3 brothers. 2 had died, one in 2011, one in 2014. The third had been expelled from the territory in 2015 during a period of resource scarcity documented in field notes as a coalition dissolution event. His last recorded GPS position was 47 kilometers east of the Karu boundary. Dr. Asante cross-referenced that expelled male's individual identification data against the Jabari Coalition's membership records. The coalition leader who had destroyed the Karu Pride, who had killed K Prime, who had stood over his brother's body and looked at a 7-month-old cub for 3 seconds before walking away, was K Prime's younger brother. He had been born in the same territory. He had spent the first 7 years of his life beside the male he came back to kill. He left, spent 3 years building a coalition of his own, and returned with full knowledge of every weakness, every patrol gap, every defensive corridor in a territory he had grown up inside. This was not a takeover. This was a planned assassination from someone who had spent years preparing for it from the inside. Dr. Asante sat with this information for a long time before writing his next line. When he did, he noted something he had previously logged as a behavioral anomaly without understanding its significance. In the camera trap footage from the night of the takeover, the coalition leader had stood over K Prime's body for 4 minutes and 17 seconds before moving on, longer than any territorial kill observation in the consortium's database, as if standing over something that required more than a moment, as if the act of it needed to be finished properly. And then, before leaving, he had turned and looked directly at Mrithi for 3 seconds. While Dr. Asante was piecing together the history in his field office, Mrithi had spent 25 months in the most contested nomadic corridor in the eastern Serengeti, building himself into something the history deserved. The EALMC documents 26 confirmed confrontations during his nomad period between August 2019 and July 2021. He won 18, lost 5. 3 were inconclusive. Each defeat was a lesson absorbed and never repeated. His most significant defeat came in April 2020 against a 3-male coalition near the Loliondo corridor. They ambushed him at a kill at 1:44 a.m. The engagement lasted 2 minutes and 11 seconds and left him with the 24-centimeter flank scar and a punctured lung that forced him into a dense thicket for 13 days. He fed on whatever came within reach. He did not move until his breathing no longer sounded like something tearing. Those 13 days changed how he fought for the rest of his life. He stopped engaging on ground he had not chosen. He stopped moving at night without first mapping the 200 meters around him. He began treating every approach to a kill site as if a coalition was already there waiting, because he had learned, at a cost that nearly ended him, that sometimes they were. By June 2021, Mrithi was 3 years old and weighed 212 kilograms, lean and scarred, and carrying the accumulated education of 25 months of continuous survival. His mane had grown full and black, covering his neck and shoulders like something forged specifically for what was coming. Rangers in the Eastern Corridor had started calling him Mwana wa Mfalme, son of the king. In July 2021, he turned west toward a territory that had been his father's, toward 4 males who had held it for 3 years on the foundation of betrayal, toward a face with a notched left ear and a pale scar across its muzzle that he had last seen standing over his father's body on a June night in 2018. When Mrithi reached the eastern boundary of former Karu territory in late July 2021, the coalition, he found, was reduced from what it had been. 3 years of holding 94 square kilometers had taken its toll. One Jabari male had been killed by a buffalo in 2019. A second had been fatally wounded in a border dispute with a neighboring coalition in early 2021. 2 remained: the coalition leader with the notched ear and 1 other. Mrithi did not cross the boundary, not yet. He spent 5 weeks on the periphery, watching. The same systematic observation he had begun at 7 months old, now deployed from a body that had absorbed 25 months of nomadic combat and was ready to use everything it had learned. He mapped their current patrol pattern. He identified their rest positions. He tested their response speed by roaring from 3 different positions on 3 consecutive nights. Night 1, 11 minutes. Night 2, 22 minutes. Night 3, 38 minutes. They were tired. 2 males holding what 4 had built, stretched thin across territory that required more than they had left to give it. On August 14, 2021, Mrithi entered the territory for the first time since he had left it as a 7-month-old cub. He came in during a rainstorm from the east, the direction no challenge had ever come from, because it was the least accessible approach. He scent-marked 16 trees along a 3.1-kilometer stretch that cut directly through the coalition leader's primary patrol corridor. He was gone before the rain stopped. The EALMC research team documented the coalition leader's response to discovering those marks on his morning patrol. He stopped at the first marked tree for 4 minutes. He scent-checked it twice. Then he moved to the second, then the third. Then he stood completely still for 2 minutes and 7 seconds in the middle of his own territory. Dr. Asante, watching the GPS data in real time, wrote 1 line in his field notes that morning. He knows who it is. September 1st, 2021. Mrithi isolated his first target. 5 weeks of observation had identified the same vulnerability that always emerges when 2 males try to hold what 4 built. Every 4 days, the patrol workload forced a split. 1 male north, 1 male south, each alone for 6 to 8 hours, each in those hours catchable. Mrithi targeted the second male first, not the coalition leader, the one who had not grown up in this territory. Camera trap KF-11, positioned at a dry seasonal waterhole 51 meters from the confrontation site, captured 3 minutes and 58 seconds of footage. The Jabari male was 10 years old, 214 kilograms, a veteran of the original takeover and every challenge the coalition had faced since. He was experienced, conditioned, and completely unprepared for an opponent who had been studying his patterns since before he could roar. Mrithi emerged from a reed bed at 5 meters. No announcement, no charge. The opening strike was a lateral blow to the male's left shoulder that collapsed his footing. Before he could reset, Mrithi had moved to the angle he had already chosen before the engagement began. The fight lasted 3 minutes and 31 seconds. Throat grip at 4:09 a.m. Held for 7 minutes and 22 seconds. First debt settled. The coalition leader found his partner's body at 9:17 a.m. The research team observed from 380 meters. He did not circle the body. He did not attempt to rouse it. He stood beside it for 8 minutes without moving. Then he raised his head and scanned the eastern tree line for 3 minutes. He was looking for something specific, something he had last seen against a termite mound at 7 months, 3 years and 3 months ago, something he had looked at for 3 seconds and chosen to leave alive. Mrithi was 600 meters east, in the trees, watching. What followed over the next 6 weeks was not a hunt. It was a conclusion being written one line at a time. Mrithi occupied the territory around the coalition leader systematically, scent marking every boundary, establishing his presence in every corner of 94 square kilometers that had been his father's. The coalition leader's range contracted. His cortisol levels reached 7 times normal baseline. He was not sleeping. He was barely eating. He was standing in the ruins of something he had built on betrayal, watching it be taken back piece by piece. October 17th, 2021, 5:11 a.m. Mrithi found the coalition leader at the granite outcrop near point KF-2018-07, the same location where K Prime made his last stand on a June night in 2018. Whether Mrithi chose this location deliberately is a question Dr. Asante has said he will spend the rest of his career being unable to answer with certainty. The final engagement lasted 2 minutes and 47 seconds. The coalition leader, weakened by 6 weeks of stress and insufficient feeding, mounted a defense that lasted 44 seconds before it failed. Mrithi delivered the killing grip at 5:14 a.m. Then he stood on the granite outcrop where his father had died and roared. The EALMC acoustic monitoring system recorded the vocalization at 96 seconds, the longest single territorial roar in the consortium's 26-year acoustic database. It rolled west across the Ngari River system, crossed into every corner of 94 square kilometers of territory, and it was answered by nothing, because there was nobody left who had the right to answer.
What Mrithi built on the ground where his father fell became the most stable territorial reign the eastern Serengeti's Nade corridor had recorded since 1995. By January 2022, he controlled the full 94 square kilometers and extended his range 11 kilometers east. By mid-2022, DNA confirmation on 9 cubs across 2 prides. By 2024, that number had grown to 34. He defended his territory against 8 coalition challenges between 2022 and 2025 and won all 8, 3 without physical contact. His roar alone, his scent alone, redirected approaching males toward territories where the cost was less certain.
Mrithi is 7 years old now. His body holds 19 documented scars, the long one on his left flank, the pale ring around his right eye. His mane, thick and almost entirely black, covers shoulders that have absorbed everything the eastern Serengeti could produce and kept moving forward. He still patrols at dawn. He still moves with the systematic precision of an animal that learned to survive by making every movement count. He still hunts with the low, calculated approach of something that treats every engagement as if failure is not an option it has budgeted for. And every morning, when the light reaches the granite outcrop at point KF 20180707, he rests there, on the exact stone where his father made his last stand, on the exact ground where a coalition leader stood over a body for 4 minutes and 17 seconds, and then turned to look at a 7-month-old cub for 3 seconds before walking away. The Jabari coalition took his father, his pride, his territory, his first year. They took it all back. Every square kilometer, every pride, every right. His father built it once. He built it again. That is what heirs do. If this story stayed with you, subscribe right now, because next week I am bringing you the story of a lion who held his territory alone for 11 years, survived 14 coalition challenges without a single partner, and died of old age in the territory he was born in. That almost never happens. You do not want to miss it.